I ran from John O'Groats to Land's End in 2007, and that was just as Mark Allison. And I wanted to raise a lot more money for the two charities that I raised funds for, so I thought it needed a brand this time, and Run Across America was the event. It needed a brand associated with that, so I'm a Geordie, passionate Geordie and a proud Geordie, and Run Geordie Run was the obvious choice. The runs that I do take a lot of organising. They're very complicated logistically to carry out, as well as fundraising as well and getting commercial sponsorship. So Run Geordie Run is what I do, you know, when I'm not at the match with my family or sleeping or at work. Basically, that's somewhere in the pecking order. Well, it's all about the North East. All of my publicity is generated in the North East. I'm always very proud to be an ambassador for the North East. That's what it's all about. And to show not just the region but the country as well as internationally what Geordies are all about. When Geordies set their mind to something, we can achieve some great results. It's not just about being in the big market on a Friday night drinking 10 pints. It's there's something else to Geordies, and we're quite a special mini race of this country actually. I was always picked last at school for every team it seemed, but I think with the Great North Run coming to the North East and Charlie Spedding as well, he was one of my heroes growing up. I think those types of things make a youngster impressionable, and later on in life, it affects your decisions that you make, and I think that's what happened with me. Well, at the time I'd ran coast to coast, Whitehaven to the North East 3 times, and that was the next logical step. I keep calling these things logical steps, and that was certainly one. You know, people think about John O'Groats to Land's End as a considerable distance, and it is. It was 874 miles my route, so it was time to step things up in terms of difficulty, and I wanted to raise more funds for the hospice. And £34,000 was raised as a result of that run, so it was a job well done in the end. Yeah, I mean, that was the first time I was really recognised en masse, by a lot of people for the runs that I'd done, and I was granted a lap of honour by Newcastle United at the end of that run, which was great, And the most important thing though was that such a huge sum of money was raised for St Benedict's Hospice. Ironically, they're in Sunderland, but they cared for my mother. So. Football rivalries aside, they just don't come into that type of thing. It was such a great reaction. It made me want to raise more funds. It's a two-way process. This, I do the run, you get the recognition for it, and it makes you want to raise more funds for the charity. So every bit of support and help that I get, it just makes me want to do more. If I wanted somewhere, I don't know, 2-3 times the distance of Britain, and that was 3.5 times the distance as it turned out. And I wanted to raise, 3 times the amount of money, so it went hand in hand. And I keep using this phrase, the next logical step, and that's what it certainly was. And there are other logical steps to be made in the future as well. I mean, Australia's the next one, but America's certainly played its part along the way.
Initially, I just said that's going to be the biggest thing we've ever had to even contemplate, training someone for. And I said it was going to be massive right from the start, and it proved to be. And to be honest with you, Mark's attitude from the very beginning proved to me that I wanted to take this guy on, because he's already done John O'Groats to Land's End, and I think from what he did there and the sponsorship he got there, and the way he came across doing all that, and all the followers he had then, was phenomenal, and I knew this would be bigger and better than it proved to be.
11 months before the Run Across America started, I broke my ankle, and I was told in A&E to forget all about the Run Across America. My medial malleosis had broken. It was a clean break, and I wouldn't be running across America. But I think that's the best thing anyone's ever told me. The best. I don't know whether it was kidology or what, but it made me come back twice as strong, I think. And I had a good rest at the time as well. I was doing a lot of training. People were saying I was doing too much training, And I think it's played that rest of that I had 11 months prior to the run across America was one of the keys of the success of the run. Ironically, I broke my ankle, but it helped in the long run.
I would have tended to agree with him. I'm a bit like that with injuries. If you've got a challenge and if you want to do it badly enough and you're prepared to put the work in to get back to where you want to be, you'll get there.
Well, my training's all based on no rest and no recovery. So, I need to do 30 to 40 miles one day and be able to do that distance the next day and the next day and the next day. So typically, I started off doing 30 to 40 mile runs on a one-off basis and having a little bit of a recovery, but eventually I was able to do that kind of a distance without any rest or recovery.
I think with Mark, all the mileage, a lot of the mileage we couldn't do with him because he's got a business to run, and so he had to do a lot of himself, and he had to do a lot of that in America himself, so there was no difference there. What we had to try and get across is, with Mark, it's not just about your legs, it's about the whole body. So I had to concentrate, obviously, on the top half, his core, a lot of core work, working his top half, because, running 30, 40 miles a day, it's not just your legs working. If you're not strong enough up here, you're going to really struggle.
I never think about the run in its entirety. You've got to break the 3,100 miles into as many small chunks as you can, and if that's the next lamppost in a particular street, so be it. That's a manageable chunk. If it's a day, if it's 2 days, brilliant.
It was a case of really preparing him with situations where if he was really, really struggling, he had someone there to mentor him, to help him out, to turn things around for him. He always had a support team, although there was no one medically there, which was phenomenal what he did. And then all he had to do then was look at himself and say, right, he's got to take it day by day. You can't look at the bigger picture. If you look at the bigger picture, he admitted himself he would have failed. But all he did was hour by hour, mile by mile. And when I got out there and saw the state he was in, the first time I got out there, he's mentally one of the strongest guys I've ever met.
The good thing about America, it's such a vast place, and people knew where I was on the run via rungeordierun.com, and every so often you'd get a Geordie here or there popping out in the middle of nowhere. There was one guy and his wife in the Rocky Mountains, I remember, at about 9,000 feet, and they just popped to drop a cheque off, £300 for the hospice and the Children's Foundation, and off they went after a 5-minute chat. So it's those random moments, those random acts of kindness that, and there were so many of them in America, that live long in the memory.
We went out on day, I think it was 70 something, I first went out. To be honest, I didn't know what really to expect, but seeing the amount of pain and anguish Mark was going through, and seeing how wrecked his body was at that point. I mean, he literally could hardly get out of bed in the morning, and it took him probably a quarter of a mile just to actually, from walking to get into a run or a jog at the beginning. That's how much, I've never seen anyone go through that much pain through exercise ever. Didn't enjoy seeing that, but that's what he had to do every single day. So I found it very tough being out there and then have to come back home, and in actual fact I came back home and I just knew I had to go back out because I was so worried about him. So I think I was only home 4 days, and I flew back out again, and actually surprised me, didn't actually know I was going back out. I was so worried about him because at that point, to think he had to do mile after mile, and actually flew from Indianapolis to New York, and I flew for nearly 2 hours, and I realised Mark had that length to actually run, and I was looking out the window thinking, he's not going to do this. Well, I knew he would do, but I just felt he needed more help, so that's why I went back out.
Although I did make the mistake 5 days from the end of the run about thinking about the finish line, and that led to some terrible problems mentally, and I just about got away with it. I was so close in time to the end of the run, but I was miles away in distance, 300 miles away, but 5 days away, and my mind couldn't cope with that. So you've got to break these things down into small, manageable pieces in your mind, and just focus on now and in the here and the now, and not the bigger picture for the time being, and that's how you get through it. After 5 days of panic attacks and anxiety, would I get there on time, would I not? I was joined in Manhattan by a small group of Newcastle United supporters who live in New York. The Toon Army supporters branch out there. All the anxiety and worry went. I had great company, and it was great banter for the last 13 miles, and it was just a glorious finish. The funds that had been raised, it was at the time £62,000 had been raised, and went on to raise £105,000 that run. but the camaraderie and being with your own kinds of people in a foreign place, in a dangerous place potentially at 2 in the morning as it was just a fantastic end. And if I was a scriptwriter, I couldn't have written a better end.
And I can't go any further. This is it. I'm in. It's the Atlantic. After 100 days. Brilliant. I cannot believe that. It's all over. All over. Superb. And the band of Newcastle United supporters who saw me in for the last 13 miles, their support was invaluable. Getting me in today. Only met someone at the Columbus game a couple of weeks ago. But it's been fantastic to have their company tonight. We had such a good laugh, and after 60 miles today, that's just what I needed. But I'm here now, Coney Island. The significance of this won't sink in with me for quite some time. And I finished this run with my mum and dad in mind and my brother. This is for them.
Sometimes it's indescribable, but it's just I'm really proud of him and how much money he's raised. It's really great.
I mean, unlike my 2007 appearance on the pitch, this time I noticed a difference.
He's known as Run Geordie Run, but would you please give my Run Geordie welcome for Mr. Mark Allison.
A lot of people didn't go for the half-time pint. You know, the ground was a lot busier at half-time than it normally is. I collected £50 in sponsor money on the way around. It was great, and the reception was fantastic. And again, that's another memory I've got that it'll stay there till the day I die, really.
Well, it was a great atmosphere around the stadium, and it was just getting loads of money around the way, and I was just wondering how much has he got so far, and it was really great to see him go on the pitch for the second time.